asking the questions mainstream journalists will never ask. This is your Richie Allen Show on richieallen.co.uk, Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, and triggerwarning.tv.
So you heard Rebecca Foster there in the news talking about Donald Trump and the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Trump has cancelled that summit, which I suppose even to a jaded old hack like myself, who knows better, or at least who thinks he knows better than the mainstream media, and knew it was all a charade anyway. I was kind of looking forward to it, to be honest. I think much merriment would have come out of it. But Trump has cancelled it, saying that the world had lost a great opportunity for lasting peace. He said this decision was based on the tremendous anger and open hostility in a recent North Korean statement. The North Koreans were pissed off, to put it mildly, about Trump VP Mike Pence and how he compared the country to Libya. Could you blame them? Anyway, in case you missed the hairpiece, and he's got more hair than me, it must be said, Donald Trump said a little bit earlier on today. Here's the Donald himself.
Based on the recent statement of North Korea, I have decided to terminate the planned summit in Singapore on June 12th. While many things can happen and a great opportunity lies ahead potentially, I believe that this is a tremendous setback for North Korea and indeed a setback for the world. Hopefully positive things will be taking place with respect to the future of North Korea. But if they don't, we are more ready than we have ever been before. North Korea has the opportunity to end decades of poverty and oppression by following the path of denuclearization and joining the community of nations. And I hope that Kim Jong-un will ultimately do what is right, not only for himself, but perhaps most importantly, what's right for his people, who are suffering greatly and needlessly. If and when Kim Jong-un chooses to engage in constructive dialogue and actions, I am waiting.
Right. He did then go on to say that sanctions, and he uses these terms, this language, the greatest sanctions, those will remain in place. Donald Trump there. So what's going on then, really, with that? What's your best bet? What's your best guess? Why would Pence mention Libya? We know that what happened in Libya was absolutely heinous, and that everybody involved in it, Obama, Hollande and Cameron, should be in prison for the rest of their lives. They lied. Gaddafi was murdered. Hillary Clinton laughed about it, thought it was hilarious. So why wouldn't the North Koreans be pissed off when they hear that? Why say that? And you have to ask the question, because you can't, despite my jesting earlier on, you can't presume to know everything. Was Kim Jong-un serious about denuclearization? They blew up a nuclear test site today, didn't they? In the presence of journalists who were invited from around the world. There was a Sky News journalist there. Were they serious about it? Was Kim Jong-un prepared to open the country up? I don't know. I'm not saying he was. Don't say I am naive. Things are so crazy these days, you just don't have a clue what's going on. So maybe Kim Jong-un was serious about all of that. And if he was, of course, that wouldn't suit the Zionist neocon agenda, would it? Which wants to push us to the brink of a global conflict with Russia and China. If Kim Jong-un was to open the country up and dispense with his nuclear program and his weapons, well, you'd no longer have North Korea as a stooge, as a puppet to bait China with and Russia. Maybe, just a thought, maybe. Maybe that's what's going on here, but maybe I'm talking through my backside. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? Tweet at Richie Allen Show. It's a puppet show. It's a charade. It is pure theatre. Of course it is. But as well as that, there are some very serious things going on. Why have they decided to pull out of that summit in Singapore? Let me know at Richie Allen Show. Now here's a story that's going to piss you off. And it's pissed me off. Not surprised by it. This isn't new or news. but it did vex me greatly today. Every news outlet reporting this morning, the big story, the top story today, the taxes, as in your taxes and my taxes, are going to have to rise to pay for the National Health Service if the UK is to avoid a decade of misery in which the old, the sick and the vulnerable are let down. Well, I thought the old, the sick and vulnerable were already being let down terribly in this country. That's not news. But the Institute for Fiscal Studies and the Health Foundation, these are two think tanks, they have said the NHS would need an extra 4% a year, or £2,000 per annum per household for the next 15 years. It said, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the only realistic way this could all be paid for was by tax rises. Screw Joe and Josephine Public to the wall even tighter than they're already screwed to the wall. Here's Sky News with a report on this big story. Not a surprise to the likes of you or me, because we know what the agenda is. But for a lot of people in the UK today, this is terrifying stuff. Sky News.
Welcome back. Now, British households might need to pay an extra £2,000 a year for the next 15 years to steer the NHS back to financial health. Experts say without a tax increase, we are going to face a decade of misery in which the old, sick and vulnerable are let down. Meanwhile, Sky News understands that hospital trusts across England are due to report a combined deficit of over £1 billion. Our health correspondent Paul Kelso reports.
The worst NHS winter on record exposed how the health service is struggling to meet rising demand after years of squeezed spending. The Prime Minister has promised a long-term funding plan in time for its 70th birthday. Today, a leading think tank says however big the present, a tax rise is inevitable.
If we're to meet the demands that growing population, an ageing population, increasing costs are going to put on the NHS, you're looking at 2 or 3% of national income. So that's 40 or 60 billion pounds. In the long run, of course, you can't just do it through borrowing. Very hard to imagine you could do it through cutting a whole bunch of other things. So there are some significant tax rises that would have to pay for this.
Yeah, let me tell you. That, by the way, is Paul Johnson, the director of the Institute of Fiscal Studies. He's the guy who said that the only realistic way this could be paid for, to stop the NHS completely melting down, was by tax rises on, as I said earlier on, the public. Let's just hear the last few seconds of that report.
Historically, the NHS budget has increased by an average of 3.7%. But 8 years of austerity have seen the slowest ever growth of just 1.7%. Experts say meeting demand and improving services will cost 4%. Add social care and it could cost £2,000 for every household in Britain, the equivalent of 9p on income tax.
£2,000 a year extra burden on every household in the UK. We're taxed to fuck here in this country as it is. Every time you blink, you're taxed. Income tax, VAT, council tax, inheritance tax, tax on every single item you buy in the supermarket. It doesn't matter what it is you buy. Alcohol, cigarettes, petrol. Where does it end? Where does it end? That will break hundreds and thousands of families, if not millions of families. It will push them over that cliff that they're teetering on the edge of, barely making it to the end of each month as it is. That would finish them. And that is part of it, by the way. This Hunger Games Society agenda. It's part of it. It's not just about the NHS being systematically destroyed deliberately, which it is, which again we've talked about a lot on this programme. The NHS will be 70 years old, by the way, on July 5th this year. It was one of the great human achievements. It was one of the most marvellous socialist achievements. Those who know their UK history will know, and I always pronounce it wrong, it's Aneurin Bevan. He was the health secretary who had a lot to do with bringing it in. And for listeners overseas who might not know too much about the NHS, the NHS basically represents healthcare free at the point of delivery, paid for through taxation, and free for everybody. Every man, woman and child, no matter what their income bracket is. You don't have to worry about it. If you need healthcare, you'll get it. It'll be there for you. And if you can't afford to pay for prescribed medicine, you don't have to worry about it. It'll be free if you're earning under a certain amount of money. I'm not sure what the threshold is. It was a marvellous idea, an amazing thing. But it's been destroyed. Who's destroying it? Who benefits? David Stanford has just tweeted, something about Richard Branson. People will be calling for Branson to take over. This is the problem, reaction, solution side of it. Of course they will. When something that's vital, when a vital public service, such as the NHS, such as policing, of course, is in disarray, is in absolute mess, meltdown, the term I used earlier on, people are more willing to listen to radical ideas like, well, let's just give it to the private sector. Right? So it's dreadful. The sort of tax hike he's talking about there is going to bury families. This fiscal studies muppet Johnson is going to bury families. Destroy them. And the fact that it's even been mentioned and that it's been covered in the extensive way it's been covered today means that it's on the agenda. Probably after the next election, which will be sooner than we think because of all this Brexit nonsense. 17 minutes past the hour. Terrible, isn't it? Terrible. When will people stand up to this and realise what's going on? Realise that they're living in a prison. It's one they can't see, they can't smell, they can't taste, they can't even touch. But it's a tyrannical dystopian prison they're living in, where multi-millionaire fuckwits can decide to make decisions to basically condemn you to a life of misery and poverty. And foolishly, you believe that next time there's an election, we'll change it. Only to find out that whether it's a Conservative or a Liberal party that replaces the previous government, it actually gets worse each time. It just gets worse and worse and worse until you're left with nothing. Insane that. And there was little or no blowback today. Maybe it's because there's so many other things going on. Maybe it's because the weather's incredible. But where's the outrage when these people say, let's increase your taxes by 4%? Where's the outrage? There should be people outside Downing Street with pitchforks and torches to burn these fuckers out of that street. And I don't mean to kill them, but I mean to chase them. Get them out of there. When will people wake up to it? Madness. Here's a bit of madness. You know this Antifa group, these idiots. Well, they're more than idiots. They're dangerous, violent, terrorists is what they are. They are terrorists. We've covered a number of occasions on this programme in the last couple of years where they've beaten the shit out of people who have just been discussing things at meetings, at open meetings. Now, look, I'm not a Conservative. I'm not a Liberal. I don't identify with any political group or movement at all. And I don't agree with a lot of Conservative alt-right thinking, but I will defend forever their right to be able to congregate, to meet and to discuss their ideas without people running into their meetings with balaclavas and kicking the shit out of them. Right, so anyway, there's an excellent report on RT today, a report by Peter Oliver, and it's about the criminal activities of Antifa in Germany. And what's extraordinary about what's happening in Germany is Antifa are openly advertising or are openly admitting that they are urging their members to commit acts of violence and acts of criminality. It's quite extraordinary. Have a listen to this report from RT. More on that and a little bit of my thoughts on what should happen with Antifa after this.
German anti-fascist groups have issued a guidebook for potential rioters. They want to encourage people to disrupt a gathering of the right-wing Alternative for Germany party in Bavaria next month. Taking a closer look at the guide this hour, Peter Oliver.
Alternative for Germany will be holding their party conference in the beautiful Bavarian city of Augsburg this summer. However, anti-fascist groups are determined to disrupt it, going as far as to publish a tour guide for those wishing to turn up and demonstrate that contains more than a few tips on how to start a riot.
We suggest tracking and exploiting the AfD's weak points across Germany so that we can guarantee the necessary space for protests in Augsburg.
It's a very detailed guide. It includes maps of where AfD members will be staying, the routes that they'll be taking and the best places to disrupt the event from. And there's also a section that includes rioting life hacks, everything the first-time rioter will need, like how to block roads, how to prepare paint to be hurled correctly. But there's also some more unsavoury instructions as well, the best ways to burn tyres, to smash shop windows or to burn cars, all without leaving any evidence that you were there or, for that matter, being able to be identified on security footage.
Yeah, burn people's cars and smash people's windows, burn tyres, kick the shit out of people whose opinions you don't agree with. Now, I have nothing in common with, nor do I support the ideas of groups like Britain First, Jada Franson and these people, even though I'm quite happy to interview them and allow them to have their say. She was on this programme a couple of years ago, Jada Franson, 2.5 years ago, didn't do very well, but she was on the programme and she was treated with courtesy, but I don't agree with them. But if you're going to prescribe Britain First, which the UK government has done, it's illegal now to be a member of Britain First. If you're found to be a member or opening a chapter, you can go to prison for it. So why haven't they prescribed Antifa? Prescribed means banned, eliminate. If that's the case, if it's good for Britain First, why haven't they banned Antifa? Why haven't they decided or declared that it should be a criminal offence to be associated with the movement Antifa? Very interesting that, isn't it? You know, if you're going to ban groups because you don't like their behaviour, and when Jada Franson and that dickhead guy that worked with her was screaming through the letterbox of people, accusing them of things that they had nothing to do with, idiots on a grand scale. I'm not sure I would have jailed them for that, personally. But they've been prescribed. Why not prescribe Antifa?